Righty. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicole Faison. I am currently serving as one of the assistant directors at Georgia Southern University in Statesboro, Georgia, this little old town in Statesboro. I will be introducing today's table talk session for the women in housing. And so I want to first officially thank you all for taking this hour out of your time to be with us. These are conversations that we truly appreciate and really want to engage in to help support all of us as we go through our day-to-day work within housing. And so I want to do a little introduction before we move on to the table talk discussion. Some of you may know, some of you may not know, we are four chairs for the women of housing. Right now we have 3 co-chairs who are serving. We have Paige on the left, Star in the middle, and Deanna on the right, my right. And then we have 2 new co-chair elects, which would be myself and my good old buddy, Miss Michelle up there on the top of my screen. So we want to thank you, welcome you, introduce ourselves a little bit. If you have any questions for us, or if you have any suggestions for us, if you have any things you'd like to see Women of Housing to do moving forward this academic year, please feel free to email us. Our email is up there. If you have not joined our Facebook group, and a lot of you are in there, but just in case, if you haven't joined, or you know people who need to join and would like to join, please feel free to send them the Facebook information or invite them through the Facebook app. And then we have our participation survey. We'll bring this back up towards the end, but we really want to get your insight on how this table talk discussion went and how you would like to see further table talk discussions, or what are some other things you'd like us to bring in Women in Housing to you for this year. We have a lot of good things that are coming our way for this group, but we really want to get your input. Your input is what values us to do what we do day to day for all of the women in housing. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to my partner in crime, Miss Michelle. She's up there. Yep, right here.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. Hi, everyone. Thanks again for being here. We've got a little activity to get us started. So Deanna's going to advance our slide and they're going to do this or that activity. So in the comments, jump in there and tell us, do you prefer chocolate or hard candies? I'm team chocolate all the way. All right, lots of chocolate fans, couple hard candies in there, awesome, very cool. All right, do you prefer drama or rom-com? Ooh, this is a hard one, I agree, Lori. A little bit of both, that looks like a pretty even mix there. Okay, all right, let's see what our next one is. Beach or mountains? I'm a beach fan myself. Beach all day, every day. All right. Ooh, some mountains, yes. Beach view from the mountains. All right, I like where Anna's head is. Yes, let's do that. All right, stay in or go out? Ooh, lots of stay in, folks. I like it. I'm here for it. I'm big E. Go out. Very cool. Okay. Lots of stay-ins there. Let's see. Sunrise or sunset? All right. Sunrise, sunset. There's a good Luke. Why am I brain farting? There's a really good song. Sunrise, sunset. Right. Okay. Somebody's gonna tell me the name of that song in there. All right. Netflix or Hulu? Are you Netflix or Hulu? Some folks are both. All right. Netflix. Lots of Netflix in here. I said the other day that Netflix is the Facebook of streaming. Only the old crew does it. I don't know. All right, Netflix. It looks like a big winner. Okay. What's our next one? Chocolate. oh, sorry, coffee or hot chocolate? Are you a coffee person or are you a hot chocolate person? We got some capital letter coffee in here. Okay, a couple of them. Hot cocoa, iced coffee. Okay, all right. Okay, looks like we got one more on the screen, I think. Slippers or fuzzy socks? Ooh, that's a tough one. I've been a fuzzy sock wearer lately. That's only because my youngest got sick on my slippers, so I don't think I'll wear those again. Cool, slides. All right, we got a couple in there. Fuzzy socks, looks like a big winner. All right, next slide, action or mystery? Ooh, both, yeah. Mystery, okay. Puppies or kittens? Here's what we'll distinguish the dog people and the cat people. Let's see it. Lots of puppies, some kittens sprinkled in there. All right. Both, okay. Vacation or staycation? Ooh, that's a tough one. Vacation, both, vacation. Gotta get away. I love it. Puzzle or board games? Which do you prefer, puzzle or board games? All right, lots of board games, people. Some puzzle folks sprinkled in there, great. All right, are you a flowers person or a candy person? Flowers, lots of flowers. Lots of flowers. All right, we like the flowers. I'm here for that. All right, are you a music festival or local fair kind of person? That's a good one. Music, local. All right, we've got a good mix there. It's a good mix, cool. All right, so are you a person who's going to take a cruise or a hiking trip? Cruise, lots of cruises, some hiking sprinkled in, or cruise you can hike on. Yes, Lindsay, let's do that. Sea cruise and hike around the boat, okay. A massage instead. All right, are you a morning person or a night person? Oh, lots of morning people. Okay, here come our night people. Some more mornings. Neither. Middle of the day person, right? Awesome. Night person. Okay, cool. All right, was that our last one? All right, cool. All right, well, thanks everyone for participating. That was a lot of fun. I hope you had some fun with that too. I'm gonna turn it over to Deanna.
Good day, everyone. Thank you all again for engaging with the activity, this or that with us. I love seeing the comments. Without further ado, I am going to officially share with you all who will be serving as our moderators and our panelists for today. So thank you to our moderator of the hour, Lindsay Gilmore. She will be serving regarding all of the questions presented, as well as the questions that you all feel that you would like to ask. Do not hesitate to put whatever's on your mind in the chat and/or unmute or speak out aloud when you notice that we have a slide deck that says questions. To my knowledge, Lindsay will be also sharing aloud if there are questions or any added commentary to what it is that our panelists have to share. And speaking of our panelists, here are our amazing panelists of the hour. So thank you to Allison, Angela, Catherine, Sarah, and I believe Sharon will be joining us. If not, we appreciate her being willing and able, and I will keep my eye out in the chat to see if others will be joining along. So without further ado, I am going to go ahead and pass the baton over to Lindsay, who will be presenting the first question that I'm going to show as a visual as well.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Deanna. And I'm really excited to be here, excited to hear this wonderful conversation we're going to have together today. I think this is something we don't do too terribly often and is definitely something that's needed right now as we have been living in this very interesting world for the past 2 years, right? So before we start, I'm a sucker for a good quote. So I just wanted to share really quickly one that's been resonating with me lately, and I think fits very well with this is, I just want to remind everyone here in this space is that you were born to be real, not to be perfect. So maybe kind of let that sit with you, soak in, resonate in that as we jump into the questions today. And I'm really excited to hear what our panelists have to say. And I'll be monitoring the chat as well. So if something resonates with you, you want more information, or you have an additional question, please feel free to drop that in the chat and I will keep a lookout for it. So our panelists, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself? Tell us why contributing in this space today was important to you. You can popcorn around, or I can call on panelists. Which would you prefer, panelists?
I can jump in.
Awesome.
So my name is Angela Delphine Meckler. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the Associate Director of Residence Life at Chatham University in Pittsburgh, PA. I just started in January, so I'm really, really excited to be here. It's a great fit. I felt really inspired and called into this space today because I've recognized that I personally am in the worst health shape of my life, and that my word and commitment this year is healing. And so for me, there are a lot of things I need to heal through. There are a lot of personal things that I want to work on mentally and physically, and even just getting my space organized. I just moved again. And so for me, I think being able to share that with other folks, I think as women, we're also called to keep going and do all the things. And I think for me, I've learned that it's okay to step back from those things. And so I just want to engage with some folks who are also healing or also don't know what they're going through, because COVID has hit, it's hit us hard and we're still feeling weird things from it. So.
Thanks for that. I think that's a very powerful word, healing. We have a lot of individual and collective healing to do. Thank you.
Hi all, my name is Sarah Williamson. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Assistant Dean of Students at Widener University, located just outside of Philadelphia, so the other side of the state. But Angela, I'm originally from Pittsburgh, so special place in my heart there. And so one of the reasons why I thought this was such a great space to jump into is I recently jumped back in. Part of my portfolio is working with our residence life team, and having worked adjacently to housing and residence life for a number of years and coming back into it, I'm finding that grounding myself in what are the most important things in my life, and even helping situate some of our staff is really important. I juggle the hat between being a last semester doctoral student, a mother, a partner, and also working in residence life and currently serving on call. So if my phone goes off, my apologies ahead of time, but there's no better space than this one for folks that understand that life. And I think it's just really important. And how do we center ourselves, and how do we collectively find community for those that may be balancing some of those similar roles and identities in work that can be very tiring at times. And right, how do we push through, especially in the grayness? So it's definitely 70 degrees outside in Philadelphia right now, which is unheard of. How do we find those moments of joy? And I just thought this was such a profound conversation and something important to me as I reintegrate myself back into the field, but want to learn from so many professionals with it. And so really hoping to ground myself in that space today.
Awesome, thanks. I think putting a parking or a pin in that, putting in the parking lot of how do all of our identities intersect, and this idea of self-compassion, self-love, self-care, finding joy again. I hope we get to that this afternoon. So if we don't, Sarah, remind me that we definitely, let's touch on that, because I think that that's amazing.
I can jump in. Hi, everyone. My name is Allison Gagney. I use she, her, or they, them pronouns. I am currently the Associate Director for Selection, Training, and Development at Merrimack College in Eastern Massachusetts. Also just started this role in January, also just moved. So Angela, I feel you on all of those points. Was really excited to join this discussion today because I think for me, self-love has been a long fought battle. I, particularly in my identity as a fat individual, grew up as a fat person, and that is that's been a struggle. And it's probably only been in the last 5 years that I've really started to embrace myself for the person that I am physically, mentally, and in every capacity. And it has really opened a lot of doors for me. And the other piece that for me really resonated is that I think in the last year or so, I've really started to take on the role of mentor for other younger women coming up through the field. This is a field that I love, but it's hard, and I want to help those women know, learn ways that they can enjoy this field but keep themselves healthy and all of those things.
Awesome. Thanks, Allison.
And then there's me. I'm Catherine. I'm the last. And my name is Catherine Kelman-Patan. I'm newly married, so it's nice to be able to actually use my full new last name. And so for me, I am the Director of Housing and Residential Education at Florida Atlantic University. I will not say what the temperature is right now. I put my background out because if not, you'll see the giant sun that happens behind my window in my office. So not trying to offend anyone who is in the cold right now. I am from the not so sunny state of Florida, not Florida, but New Jersey. And so I understand how cold it is currently. But for me, and what I want to contribute is very much what my colleagues said, but additionally, as a woman of color and sitting at my role at my institution, I'm the first woman of color and one of the youngest directors in my portfolio. And so acknowledging what does that mean when I'm sitting in a room with people who believe that I may not be meant to be here, but I can contribute a lot in understanding there is self-care and then holding the other identities that I do hold, and knowing that every day someone is either talking at me or talking to me, and I have to then talk back at them because I'm highly capable in telling them when to stop. And so making sure that we tell even young or even seasoned professionals, like, your workplace has to be a workplace that's giving to you, not just only taking from you. So that's what I bring to the table today.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Powerful words.
Can I point out real quick that Sharon is here, but she's listed under my name, and I would love to have her join us.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
I am so sorry. I had some technical difficulty. And then we had an incident last night that made its way to us dealing with it today. And campus safety was just in my office. So I am so sorry. But I am thankful for this opportunity. Allison talked to me about the opportunity to be a panelist for this event. So I'm Sharon Lott, and I'm the Director of Residential Life at Converse University. I just started here August 3rd, so I've been here 7 months now. I have worked in higher ed and particularly residence life. This will be my 17th year. Much of my experience has been at small private institutions. And I was thankful for her to invite me. I think that I have a unique experience because I've also worked at institutions where I may have been the only woman of color, maybe at the institution or maybe in the department. So housing has been a labor of love for me. I see myself being in the field for a very long time. And that's just a little bit about myself.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad that you were able to be a part of the panel, and hopefully on call, is quiet for a little bit. In that instant, we all understand that rollover effect, right? Sometimes it's days upon days. So we're glad that you're here in this space with us. So let's go ahead and roll into question number 2. Just a reminder, I am going to monitor the chat as well. So if something resonates with you, if you want to hear more or have additional questions, just pop that in there. Ladies, why don't you tell us, what is your definition of self-love, and how do you make sure we just talked about on call, right? And we've talked about all those different identities that many of us have, or challenges that we've experienced in that space. How do you make time for it as a housing professional?
For me, so one of the things that I enjoy to do is go to the movies with my husband. We are foodies as well. We like to try different restaurants. I think sometime, you know, in housing, things can be unpredictable. But when you find those half an hour, 45 minutes, weekends where others may be on call, we have a tiered on-call system, we have a director on-call system. You use those opportunities to self-love, whether it's getting away from campus for some time. You know, it can be a little bit of everything. And I think sometimes we have to push ourselves to make the time. And you know, again, it could be 30 minutes of just complete silence. It could be going off campus when someone else has the phone. So those are things that I think about and have done in my own life.
So I would say my definition of self-love is to be accepting of yourself while also giving grace when you are struggling with who you are or your body. Transparently right now, like I'm struggling in my body. I'm also a fat woman. And so like for me, it is, it's been a journey, but I'm also learning to accept, okay, here's who I am. Here's my identity. Let's, you know, move forward and take care of ourselves. And so for me, making time for that self-love and that self-care, definitely, you know, living, so I live on, even though I'm associate director, I live on. And so it's making space to spend time, you know, with family. Relationships are really important to me. And so, you know, spending time with family, spending time with my husband, and also creating space for, like someone said, massages. I love massages. And so whatever, self-care doesn't look like everything the same for everyone. It's what does it look like for you and what do you need to feel well in your space and in who you are.
I would say we all get vacation and we all get sick time. And I mean, I think we don't give ourselves enough time to be like, well, you know what, this work is going to be here. I tell my staff and I tell myself, you get vacation for a reason. Take it. Do not feel angry. Do not feel like you're ashamed to take it. If you are sick, stay the heck home, not just because of COVID, but because you're sick. And the work will be there. And, you know, the best thing I ever learned from a female mentor was, you are replaceable. A university will not tell you that, but the day that you leave, they will find someone. That's why they have TPE and all these Spelman and Johnson people. You will be replaced. So do not think because, oh my gosh, I came into work and I stayed because they were sick. They know that I am important. You are replaceable. That's why we teach those to replace us at the next level. So take your vacation and do not feel guilty. And so I don't feel guilty. I happily also state that I am about 2.5 months away from going on maternity leave for the first time in my whole life. And I'm very happy. My whole staff knows I'm happy. I don't want to drop my baby too soon, but I want to be on maternity leave. And I'm throwing the phone at my boss and I say, I'll see you in September. And if the place burned down, they're going to figure it out, right? So for me, self-love is advocating and using the mechanisms that institutions have provided us that we need to use. And then for me, I'm on call all the time. I would love to be on a director rotation where someone else is on the phone, but I am. And there are times where I call my associate director and say, look, I need the next 2 hours for you to just do what you need to do. And I know that you can do this for me to get a sane moment in before I lose my everlasting mind. And my staff know if I say that's what it means. So it's also being honest with yourself that you need help. And it's okay to say, I'm at the point where I need an assistant and I need someone to step in and help me, because at the end of the day, you're a really great worker. Every person in this room and those who aren't here today are great people, great workers, but we all need help at some point. We all need a life raft. So making sure you know who your life rafts are and speaking with them.
I think building off of Catherine's point there, one of the things that I heard and a mentor shared with me is that balance is not a seesaw, balance is a juggling act. And it's about knowing which balls are heavier than others, which balls are glass, which balls are rubbers, and which ones, if you drop, can somebody else pick up versus the ones that you can't shatter. And for me, just thinking of that, it's like self-care is having that awareness in myself of what exactly do I need and what does that look like in the environment. I can't drop the glass ball of my children and their needs, especially them being very tiny humans, right? But I can send a housing selection email tomorrow instead of today, or I can shoulder tap somebody else in that process. And so I think for me that self-awareness is that, and also having that awareness in myself, like how do I make time for it? Like sleep and quiet is my self-care. It's the way that I rest. It's the way that I rest. Unfortunately, being in a system that is very patriarchal with leadership and what the assumptions are in gender roles, like rest and quiet and sleep is how I recover in that system. And I think sometimes we oftentimes make it think that we need to spend money or do something else for care and well-being, that whole gloop culture that thank you, Gwyneth Paltrow puts out there. But rest and quiet and sleep is recovering in itself.
Sarah, I'm right there with you. I nap like probably at least half the days of the week because I am on, and I'm an introvert. So for me, this work is really exhausting too. I leave the office and I am just drained because I've talked to people all day. And so I go home, and most days I take a 20-30 minute nap when I can. So absolutely, that is one of the ways that I practice self-care and self-love. For me, when I think about a definition of self-love, it has really come to be embracing the things that other people perceive as flaws about myself, and to come to appreciate that those are just realities about myself that are unlikely to change, or that if they were to change, I wouldn't necessarily be okay with that. So embracing that. And then the other way that I really try to integrate self-care and self-love into my work and housing is I try and be intentional, looking ahead. And people have talked about vacation already, planning days out in advance, knowing the ebb and flow of my work, and then planning around that. So I know, okay, I have a day off to look to, I have a week off to look forward to, so that when things are daunting, I know I have something coming up that I can be happy about.
Some very powerful words in just that one question. It's this accepting and giving grace and embracing our flaws. I do want to follow up on something before we jump to the next question really quickly. We talked about living on, and I think that there's it takes a special person to live on, right? And it takes a special person to be in the on-call rotation. And so maybe our panelists could provide some tips or advice to the women in the space that do live on and serve in that on-call rotation. And how do you create that space when you're literally, steps from work, if not inches, what it feels like at time from work?
So my advice is you have to make friends outside of work. So it's great having your colleagues, their hall coordinators, or your other buddies that throughout the university, but find something that takes you off campus for whatever amount of time it is off campus. My time living on campus was very long and at many different institutions in many different places. But I will say the worthwhile piece was having connections off campus, because that allowed me to have the excuse of not finding my whole world, my social network and my work network were combining, and that causes problems because you're venting all day long to people who are also venting all day long. And so you find people who don't have to talk about housing. Housing does not have to be your whole world. Every beginning starts in housing and closes with housing. Find things off campus. We were people before we were in housing. We will be people after housing. So there are things, even if it's knitting or whatever it may be, find things off campus that fill your cup that are not housing maybe related.
I also try really hard to not bring work home other than outside of the duty phone, because that's plenty to have to bring home. And so I try to keep my home as my oasis. And when I'm not on call, it's a work-free zone as much as humanly possible.
I would add in setting boundaries of your place and space, and so making it clear if folks know where you live, like when, or what type of interactions is appropriate in that setting. I also found for myself when I was live on, I was fortunate to work at an institution that had a pet policy, and so having something, and unfortunately my partner at the time was not the reason for it, but having a reason to go home, like I had to go let the dog out. I had to go for a walk. That for me really was a pivotal moment in making that live on experience a little bit different, is setting those clear boundaries, I think a little bit different from Allison is I'm a person that feels very overwhelmed if I hit an inbox that has more than 30 emails in it, because I sort everything, and that's very overwhelming for me, because I don't want to drop the ball on something, right? It's my very type A personality. So for me, I've held time that after my little humans go to bed from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., hard stop, I will use that to catch up on whatever I want to. But outside of that, I'm not going to do it. And I give myself permission that it's not every day, maybe once or twice a week that I will do it. But I've established those boundaries with others and even within myself about what I feel like is a reasonable thing to do in those spaces.
Any other panelists have any advice for any live on folks? If not, anyone in the crowd, any of our folks, participants, any questions?
I would love to know if I can. I'm working with a supervisor who I adore so much. And sorry, Michelle and Deanna, who have already heard me talk about this before. But I'm looking for strategies or ways to help support the staff I supervise with a work-life balance if those who supervise us don't model that themselves.
I like how all of us were like, oh, I just saw that collective. That is a great question that the panelists will definitely address.
So, sorry, I had a duty call. We have a flood casualty. It's fine. So, from my experience, and I've had that in the past, it's really critically important to model that yourself, even if that's not a practice that everyone in your department is following. And so, you know, if setting a boundary and saying, actually, like, I did my 40 hours this week, I'm going to come in a little late on Friday, or, you know, having those transparent conversations with a supervisor in general are really important. But I think modeling it for the people you supervise is critical. And I think something else that I have always done is prioritizing a sense of self-care in my employees from the get-go. And so when I supervise students, and I will be doing this with my RDs as well, what does a self-care plan look like for you? And it's a simple ask, but I've realized a lot of people have never thought about it, right? And so for me, I want to know what you do for yourself that helps you to recharge. And then I take it a step further. I challenge them to do something for themselves this week. And so in a one-on-one, I'll say, what is one thing I can hold you to? And it's not in an aggressive way. It's in a, like, you need to prioritize this, even if you're really busy. And I think challenging them and holding them to that, because it's just as important as meeting a work deadline, is just really critical to having a good balance.
So I was thinking about this past check-in. Was my first check-in here at Converse, but I'm not new to the process. It was very lengthy. We have about 500 students residentially, but our check-in process was a span of maybe a week, and there were other things going on, but it was a very lengthy process, and multiple times I had heard my staff members make comments about the idea of having to go right from training right into check-in and then starting their classes, because I supervise a professional staff member and I also supervise graduate resident directors. And as a new staff member here, it was very important for me to let my staff know that I heard them. I hear them say how tired they were, that they had so much going on and everything. So given how lengthy everything was, I thought it was appropriate to give them that first week off Now, some people would not have done that, but I felt it was appropriate and them to come in the following week to pick up their office hours, because they do office hours as well. And they're also managing their buildings. So I think sometime when there's discussion about how staff is feeling and how they're engaged in all the things that we have on campus, is important for me to keep my eyes and ears open and let them know I hear them and provide some solutions or some accommodations to what is going on in our department. So that is one example.
I would say for me, I don't, with my staff, so I do like a welcome every year to my professional staff. And I said to them, I do not believe in the idea of balance, because I don't think in the world of housing, we can ever say one goes up and one goes down. That's just my belief. For me, it's boundaries. It can sometimes be blending like coffee. Like it's sometimes the worlds collide a little bit. It happens, but I think part of what I tell them every time is talking about it at training, talking about it in your one-on-ones, and making it part of a social norm in the office, that it's not a taboo, and you feel that this is the culture, that you have to be overworked to be seen as productive and a member that is being successful. I think in housing, we have created this very unhealthy way of doing work, which is if I do more, I am better at my job. And I tell my staff that is not my part. My part as a director is I want to see your capacity. Everyone learns capacity very differently. Some people are type A's that are like myself. I can come into a room and I totally get it. Some people are type P and they have to live in chaos a little bit, but each of them gets to the angle, whichever way they choose, but they create their own space. And so part of it is making it a norm to talk about these things and not a taboo, and people feel that they can't talk to their supervisor, because some people do come from very unhealthy housing experiences where they have to be on point every time, live and die by the housing sword and all of these things. And that's great, but that's not realistic anymore. A lot of us have spent the last 2 years doing that, and our profession has suffered because that is an unrealistic thing to do for 2 years. And we've been doing it for centuries in housing, except that we had little moderate breaks. And so if no one has learned that, part of it is the discussion about you have to have a plan, but you also have to be able to vocalize when my words are colliding and I need help and I don't know what to do.
Absolutely.
I
think
love,
sometimes, oh, go ahead, Sarah.
no, Lindsay, go ahead.
Well, you're a panelist, so you should go, my friend. Go.
I was just going to say, I think working with newer professional in the field, sometimes it's providing the permission to rest, to take time. My staff last night it was like 10:30 and I was getting calls from them wrapping up an all hall. And I was like, don't come in at 9. Just don't come in at 9, right? Like take that time. And for some of them, they aren't ones to be quick to advocate for themselves because they feel like they haven't earned it because it's part of their job. And so I think sometimes as a supervisor, it's my responsibility to remind them that they have permission to care for themselves. They have permission to take time, to stop at Starbucks before heading into the office, to sleep in, to go put in a load of laundry at lunch, right? Like to end the meeting 5 minutes early or go take a walk around campus, like to give them that moment of permission, even though they don't need it and it's not intended in a micromanaging way, but helping to like inform them that like, you don't need to earn time away. You don't need to earn time to rest. You deserve that time, and centering that in our work. I also think what I love about my position, I feel really honored, is to rethink what does August mean. I share with my team, my least favorite thing about working in housing and residence life is August. I literally hate it with every ounce of my passion. I love training, I love the conversations, but why do we go for 12 hours a day for 30 days straight? Like, why are we doing this? And so we started intentional conversations about how to rewrite that script. We had to do a quick pivot in January, and nobody wants to sit on Zoom for 12 hours a day or even 8 hours a day. So we honored we'll only do 2 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening, and then provide other time for learning or reflection on your own or in small group spaces. And our RA staff was just at a better place starting the semester. They felt like it was the most reasonable start that they've had. Our professional staff, they alternated who was staying in the office to support RAs. And so it was a different person every night. So not everybody had to be on all the time. And so I think, right, what can we do to rewrite the script for maybe some of the experiences that we've had to help better center what is self-care, what is rest, what is recovery? Because nobody is going to benefit from doing 12 hours a day for 30 days. Like, we need to figure out some other way to rewrite the script because it's going to be better for everyone.
Any other thoughts, panelists, on that question? I will say sometimes we have to role model if our upper leadership will not do so. And so that's also okay. It doesn't mean you're going against what your upper leaders do in the way that they work. It just means you're doing what works best for you and your team. So just remember that. And that is 100% okay, as long as you're bouncing around within the box, the purview of your job, your position, your scope. So let's flip the script slightly here. Let's talk about passion projects and things that bring us joy. Panelists, what are you currently focusing on and why? And why does that bring some rejuvenation to you or joy into your life?
There we go. One thing I'm currently working on, I mentioned that I just moved. So I'm still live on. And in my last institution, I was in my live on assignment for a year and a half, 2 years. And I realized as I was moving, I literally hadn't hung anything on the walls there. And that said something pretty profound to me. So I'm really working right now on making my new home a home, that it's somewhere, as I said, my home is my oasis. So that it's somewhere that has comfortable spaces, that embraces a lot of my hobbies and has little nooks for, reading and things like that. And so that has really been rejuvenating for me lately.
I would say for me, I'm in my second year of my PhD program, which is not related to my work. And I was very conscious about that. So I'm not in a higher ed program at all. All my other degrees may have been, but my degree is in African diaspora. And so, my passion work is creating. Right now, what I do is do a lot of lesson plans for people at the African diaspora wanting to teach their children about Africa and connecting them. And so that's my passion work, is working on my PhD, getting to that dissertation, not ABDing it, like getting to the end, but also through the end, making sure I'm creating these tangible things that people can use now and not waiting until I can be published for them to actually use the things that I have. So that's my passion.
I would build off of that I am towards the end, and it started off as being like a good pandemic hobby to do an EDD, and now I'm like, I don't know if that was a pandemic hobby, but my research topic is around faith and spirituality and identity development within it. And so I have loved it, and I went down this rabbit hole on it. And sometimes I asked for my birthday for my partner that I really just wanted to be left alone for an afternoon to do research on faith, because it just fuels me so much and fills my cup. And even looking at it as there's studies that show it's a tool of resiliency, and it helps individuals persist in areas where there are a lot of boundaries and systems of oppression. And it fuels my soul so much. And the more I lean into it, the more I'm passionate about it. But it's not tied to residence life. It's not tied to being on call. It's this area that is absent of my work and my day-to-day, but it just fills me up and gives me so much hope. And so I lean really hard into reading and reflecting on it and just myself. And I just love it so much. So if anybody likes to talk faith, I'm here for it.
So, like I said, my word is healing. And part of that is focusing on relationships. And specifically, this is the first time I've lived in Pittsburgh since before college, and my family's from here. So for me, it's really important to spend time with my mom. And we take quirky day trips on weekends, or take walks, or we did a penguin encounter at the Pittsburgh Aviary last Saturday. And I think it's just really important to do these quirky mini experiences with her, and to take that time on, also rebuilding a relationship that just parents, like hasn't always been, maybe the strongest over the years. So that's been a really big focus for me and has definitely helped my mental health a lot.
Other passion projects any of our panelists want to share? Okay. I feel like we've kind of touched on this quite a bit. I feel like that's been the bulk of our conversation, kind of speaking about that. But I think maybe as we wrap up, if there's one final question from the group, or if not, maybe some final words of advice or wisdom, your favorite philosophy around this or quote. But before we go there, are there any final questions from our participants?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this space. I'm grateful for it. I was wondering if anyone had any tips, tricks, words of advice, wisdom. I believe housing, I think it takes a special human being to work in housing. And I'm very grateful for the blessings that it has afforded me. But there is a time and a season for all things, and it is coming very clear, crystal clear, as a matter of fact, that this season of my life may be coming to an end. As great as it has been, I feel that in this new season, I am being called to utilize my strengths and passions in a new way. A little bit of context, I've been a live-in professional, and I was the bulk of that in my 30s. And now I'm in a mid-level role. Yes, shout out to mid-level management. It's a whole vibe. But I realized that there could be more for me. So that's just a little cliff notes. So my question is, what advice do you have for a woman who is looking to take all of the skills and the experience that working in housing and residence life gives you to find out what's next? Where should somebody start? How do you prepare folks who have decided that housing is wonderful, but may not be wonderful anymore, and they're looking for something else? Thoughts, please. Thank you.
So I'll say first, I commend you for taking this season and acknowledging that you're in that season, because that's the first step, right? First step is acknowledging like housing and this time, it's that time has happened, right? I think we would all be sitting here saying like, there's some people who are lifers, they will end their time in housing and never go anywhere else. And there's some people who are like, that time will come for me. And I know that very clearly. I think one is most definitely mentorship, is finding someone who's maybe in the field or not in the field, but someone who can talk about like that transition. I will say that we sometimes sell ourselves short. We have a lot of experience, a lot of skills. And if COVID has not taught us one thing, we are very, very marketable people. And so there are a lot of housing people who have went and taken their skills like LeBron and, as someone from South Florida currently, like, took their skills somewhere else and stand in your face, stand in your confidence, that you are meant to go wherever that is, and don't sell yourself short to the possibility of something else that could even be bigger than that mid-level position you have currently, because so many of us sit in mid-levels or entry levels or even higher up positions. And if we went into a corporate position, we would be in the executive suite pretty much because of the amount of skill sets we have. The other piece is thinking about what genre or area of corporate or non-corporate, nonprofit, whatever it may be that you're looking to go into. And there's a lot of community for people who are post-housing, post-student affairs, who are looking to find their colleagues with those skills and get them into places they know are looking for them. There's a lot of organizations who are looking for ex-housing people to run their diversity and inclusion work because they know we've done it. There are a lot of people doing conflict resolution for companies because that's what we do all day, right? Organization, I could go on and on. We have the skills. We just have to now change the verbiage from this higher ed experience to a very corporate or governmental, whatever it may be, context. And there are people who are happy to help you, but find mentors starts first.
I think, Tara, kudos to your vulnerability and just being willing to share that. I think the first thing comes with assessing and like feeling where you are. I have stepped out of housing when I had my first child. It was time to not have the late night calls, and for me, and I have stepped back in just more recently. And so I think beyond the mentorship, looking at what actually sparks you joy within your work. I actually stepped into health promotion work for a little bit. This was before the pandemic, and folks were like, that's just like warm and fuzzy. And then the pandemic happened, and I was like, that is crisis management right there, written all over it. But it brought me joy. It didn't have the late hours. It had a great bit of flexibility. I got to do some wellness coaching, and that was just an awesome experience. But I looked first into the work of what exactly do I love the most in it? What exactly is that joy? And so I dabbled with the idea of, do I step into training? Like Amazon has hired an immense amount of higher education professionals to do their training and recruitment practices. Is that where I'm finding my joy? Or is having those tough conversations with students as they navigate substance use where it was? And for me, as well, that was where I situated myself. But I also had to wrestle with the idea that it wasn't that this was the end of my story. It was just time for me to segue into a different chapter. And years later, I never thought I was going to go back into residence life. But then it was time for me to move into a different chapter. And I've stepped back into it in a different lens, in a different space. And it's brought such a different part of joy. It allows me to use a different portion of my brain that I wasn't. And I'm at a different place with the intersection of my identities to be here to support it. So I think, leading into what is joyful for you in your work, and being willing to engage in those conversations is a really good starting place. And it sounds like there's a lot of places in the chat and people who might be able to connect you to some folks who can help support you in your next chapter.
So I have a suggestion. So tomorrow at 3 o'clock, there will be a Zoom meeting that is being led by Olin Garrett, who is the Associate Vice President for Student Affairs at Temple University. And he's doing a session on, should I stay or should I go? Lessons on when to jump ship. And that might be an opportunity to get some extra feedback or dialogue with someone who is speaking on the topic. I plan to, although I love student affairs, I plan to, view that meeting, and I can send you information about it if you're interested. But that is the name of the topic for the Zoom meeting tomorrow.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that advice and that event tomorrow. I think that would be great. Okay, I think we are at time, my friends. So thanks to everyone for the panelists. I'm going to turn it over to Deanna in just a second to close us out. But thanks to the panelists for spending your hour with us and sharing your wisdom. And hopefully you all have found someone maybe you can connect with. If something resonated with you, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of these wonderful panelists or anyone else that you've seen today. I'll leave you with one quote before I turn over to Deanna. Just a reminder that self-care is giving the world the best of you instead of what's left of you. Because that's something I think that we are very, very, very good at doing, is giving what's left of us instead of what's best. So thank you all. I'm going to turn over to Deanna.
Phenomenal job, Lindsay, Allison, Angela, Catherine, Sarah, Sharon. I love this. I definitely enjoyed the engagement from you all, the attention, the emoticons, the love. I'm hopeful that you all got as much out of it that I know I personally did over here taking notes. But without further ado, the last slide is something I would love for y'all to screen capture, copy and paste, and stay connected with us. So if there are other topics of interest, if you say we need a part 2 of this to focus on certain areas, let us know so we can give you exactly what you are looking for. But as always, thank you for connecting with us. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for helping us to make this what it is. We will stay on a little bit longer for folks who may want to do an exchange of information if you haven't already started in the private messaging, because we love to talk and have a great time, but sometimes we forget the networking that's vital and the ongoing conversations that can happen outside of these spaces. So continue to make it a great week, everyone. For those who must go, continue to give the best you have and be okay with what you don't have. All right, y'all. I'll be hanging back. Continue to exchange information with one another.
Thank you so much. Everybody have a wonderful day.
My pleasure.